you know what? I'm just gonna do something completely different right now. If you're new to my channel, my name is Rohan Agrawal. I like music a lot, and I was thinking, hey, I kind of want to do some review type thing on this channel. And so I've thought of this worst to best series, where I just rank, honestly, different stuff, to be real, because I do plan on dabbling into, like, different topics here and there. This first episode of the series, we're going to be talking about legendary 90s alternative rock band Weezer. If you haven't seen the, thumbnail and the title by now, yeah, we're talking about Weezer. Legendary alternative rock band formed in LA in 1992. Patrick Wilson on drums, Brian Bell on rhythm guitar, Matt Sharp on bass, who was replaced by Mikey Welsh, and then Scott Schreiner, and the Mad Lad himself, Rivers Cuomo, on lead vocals and lead guitar. The reason I wanted to talk about Weezer for this first one, because I feel like it would be pretty fun, because Weezer are known for creating some of the best albums in alternative rock history, like the Blue Album and Pinkerton, and some of the worst, which we'll get into shortly. So I thought it would be fun because Weezer are a very inconsistent band, and it's very hit or miss with them. I'm not going to be talking about Death to False Metal, that's a B-Sides collection, or any of the Christmas Record Store Day or whatever EPs they throw out, because they're not studio albums. So let's get started with this list, starting with... Yeah, Ratitude's not on this spot, but we'll definitely talk about that later. Let me get some positives out of the way. I really like the song Perfect Situation, and I really like the song Haunt You Every Day. I think they're amazing songs because they really just replicate that melodramatic Weezer style that we all know and love. Like, I also love some of the guitar work on this thing. It's just great, in my opinion. Those songs are at least good enough to stand out on their own. I can't really say that about the rest of the album, though. I mean, this is the same album with Beverly Hills and We Are All on Drugs, two of the worst Weezer singles, in my opinion. Like, I know a lot of people defend Beverly Hills, but I don't really see a whole lot of people defend Drugs. I don't like about this album, it's just really boring and forgettable at moments. Like, when was the last time you thought about songs like Peace or My Best Friend or Freak Me Out or like The Other Way? It's probably been a while, and these songs kind of just go in one ear and then just out the other. Like, if some of the songs were worked on a little more, or you could cut some songs off the album, I feel like this album could have been good in some way. Like, it's too long and boring. Like, I know Green is a very similar case where everything's kind of formulaic, but that album didn't really stay much long. It's only 28 minutes. This album is 45 minutes long, making it their longest to date when it really doesn't deserve to be. I just am not a fan of this album. I think it's boring. I think it's derivative. I just don't like it at all. So we move on to the next entry, which you probably saw coming, is... This is the most infamous album Weezer has ever made, and you can just straight up tell. Like, this thing is very, very dated in production. Like, you can tell when this was made. And this album has one of the most infamous songs off the album being Can't Stop Partying. You know, the song where Lil Wayne gets on a Weezer song and just spits a verse, and I actually kind of enjoy it just because of how bad and absurd yet interesting it is. I like the song If You're Wondering To, I Want You To, the opener. It's very cute. I like its more fun and acoustic nature to it. And I really like Put Me Back Together. I think it's a great catchy song that has more of a traditional Weezer sense to it all. But good God forbid, you get songs like I'm Your Daddy, The Girl Got Hot, Trippin' Down the Freeway, Love is the Answer, which may be their worst song, all on the same album. It's just a giant no. However, I do put this album over Make Believe because I do kind of enjoy how bad it is at moments, like I'm Your Daddy or Let It All Hang Out. Like, I think they're terrible songs, but they're kind of funny in a so bad it's good way that you're never gonna get something like that on Make Believe. It's too safe and too boring, in my opinion, to really tear apart. But Ratitude's just kind of fun to just riff on all the time. However, it's still not the greatest Weezer album ever made. I mean, it's only number 14 on the list, but it's more interesting at least than Make Believe is. This album was promoted on Fortnite. That's enough to put it on this spot of the list. All joking aside, this album was disappointing to say the least because I really liked some of the singles that were coming out. Like Can't Knock the Hustle was very kind of funk oriented. Zombie Bastards was more an acoustic, more of a party anthem, but I liked it. And High as a Kite is generally one of the best Weezer songs they've ever written, in my opinion. Then the album just decides to take a nosedive in quality, and the band puts out some of their most inoffensive and bland as hell songs that they've just ever put out. Like, you got songs like Piece of Cake that are just really bland. I'm Just Being Honest sounds really bitter to me. Too Many Thoughts in My Head. Why did Rivers rap on this song? Worst songs are easily the last 3 songs on the album because they are poorly written, they feel like messes, and they're just not fun to listen to. California Snow is just really, really grossly overproduced. Like, I'm not a fan of it. It just sounds way too overproduced. The woos are really annoying, but The Prince Who Wanted Everything is just one of their worst songs, period. Like, it's very clunky, it's very confusing at points. I'm just not a fan of it at all. I guess my final verdict on this album would be it's strange how Weezer added swearing to an album, and it somehow made the album less offensive than a typical Weezer album already is. A little fun fact, this was actually the first album I ever bought on vinyl, and yes, I do make bad choices. If I'm being real, this album is more than it is bad. I don't understand why Weezer did another California Summer album when literally their last album was a California Summer album, but it was way better than this album. Like, there are a lot of songs on that album that I just don't give a shit about. Like, I don't care about Mexican Fender. I don't really care about Get Right. I don't really care about La Mancha Screwdrive. Like, to me, the lows aren't really bad or anything, they're just more boring. But the highs on the album are actually pretty good, such as the songs Weekend Woman and the more acoustic-driven QB Blitz. I mean, I don't really hate this song, Feels Like Summer, like a lot of people do. Yeah, it can be annoying, but it's not that bad or anything. The album is just more meh than it is good. And also, I really don't care about the production. It doesn't bother me too much. It can be clean at moments, but yeah, it's just not for me personally. You know what? This album isn't that bad. I prefer it over like a good chunk of their catalog. Like, no one's supposed to take this seriously. That's just a fact. And this album only kind of exists for the memes. Obviously, some teenage girl on Twitter was campaigning for Weezer to cover Africa, and it became one of their biggest hits in a while, which kind of sucks. But it basically blew up, and then now we have this album. It's not that bad, but I kind of wish that Weezer really didn't cover some of the most popular songs in the world. I wish the songs were a lot more varied. I do see a Weezer cover album working, but I just wish they would more or less make it very varied. Like, cover something by Slayer, maybe something by Nirvana, maybe a Pixies cover, or whatever. Just make it more varied. Another problem with the album I have is that the songs kind of just sound the same in every way. Like, there's really nothing different except for like maybe one's tuned up, one's tuned down, or maybe like Mr. Blue Sky or No Scrubs. It just doesn't change at all. More awkward and clumsier moments such as Billie Jean, and there are more good moments such as the cover of Take On Me, for example. However, this album really doesn't give much staying power to it. It's just kind of, oh yeah, that happened. Let's move on to the next album kind of way. So this is why Teal is at this spot. This is the newest album by Weezer that dropped actually a couple months ago. And since I've decided to spend some time with it in order to make this video, I thought it belongs here. It is pretty underwhelming. I mean, the singles to this album were really good. I like Hero. I thought End of the Game was the best track off the album. I think The Beginning of the End is also a really solid track as well. However, once Blue Dream hits and that rip-off Crazy Train sample thing happens, it just kind of goes downhill for me. I'm not really the biggest fan of Sheila Can Do It or She Needs Me because I honestly really can't tell the difference between those two, and they just kind of blend together for me, and they kind of do sound similar in the titles as well. I also really enjoy the track Precious Metal Girl. It's a nice acoustic ballad to kind of end this more hard rockin' album off, and I think it does a good job at that. When the album does have its high moments, it's usually the instrumentation, as some of the lyrics on this thing can be kind of dumb at points. No, I'm not counting one more hit. No, Daddy, no! This album cover fucking sucks. The album was promoted by Fred Figglehorn, and it deserves this spot on the list because of that. This album is at least better than Ratitude, to say the least. It's an okay album experience. The first 4 tracks on this album are incredibly great. Memories is fun and anthemic. Ruling Me is basically kind of being a slave to this kind of lust. Trainwrecks is an emotional masterpiece and it's really underrated. And the Rivers Cuomo solo performance, Unspoken, is easily the best song off the album. When the band comes in during the last part of Unspoken, oh my god, it's amazing. Then you have a song like Where Is My Sex, and it kind of just derails the album from there. Although it does kind of pick up back with a song like Hang On. Then you have songs like Smart Girls, which is very badly written and has some of the stupidest Weezer lines ever. And then you have Time Flies, which has some of the worst mixing I've ever heard from a professional studio band. The album can be all over the place quality-wise, and yeah, that album artwork does make it seem like the album was half-assed, and it kinda was. But I'd at least recommend it if you're curious enough. Now we can actually get to the albums I can safely say I like. This feels like the band just going all out and just doing whatever they want to. I mean, you got a song like The Greatest Man That Ever Lived. It's just basically this kind of epic song that has all these different styles of music thrown into it. Dreamin' is literally one of the most underrated songs the band has ever put out. Hell, even the other band members actually get their own songs to less than stellar results. Brian Bell's Thought I Knew is kind of bland and really basic in some parts. Scott Schreiner's Cold Dark World is okay musically, but oh my god, the lyrics on that song make me want to cringe. And Automatic by Patrick Wilson is kind of okay, not gonna lie, it's actually pretty good. Hell, even Rivers' own songs on this album cannot be great as well. I mean, I'm not really the biggest fan of heart songs. However, there's one thing I really like about this album, and it's that it's kind of goofy and fun, and it really doesn't take itself seriously. A song like Troublemaker would be a song I would normally hate, but the lyrics are kind of just so stupid that I end up loving it. And I really also enjoyed the song Everybody Get Dangerous. It's such a dad rock song-ish, but I kind of just love it. Hell, even a song like Pork and Beans and The Angel of the One have become Weezer classics in their own way as well, and I get why. They're really good songs. Overall, the album can be a little goofy, it can be a little dumb at points, but overall, I do think it's a good album. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, but the Green Album's so formulaic, and yet you complained about Make Believe being extremely formulaic. Why is that? And I'll tell you why is that. It's because, one, I said before that Green really doesn't overstay its welcome, only clocking in at around 28 minutes long. Plus, the songs are just better. I mean, that's probably the most important reason why it should be at this spot on the list, because, you know, all the songs are pretty good. The album is also just really fun to listen to as well. Like, you get songs like Hash Pipe or Island in the Sun that just have this upbeat attitude towards it all, and it's just very carefree, and no wonder why they're singles. They're amazing songs, probably the best off the entire album. Even the more deep cuts such as Knockdown Dragout or Simple Pages or Old Oh Girlfriend, they were just really fun to listen to. They don't, like I said, overstay their welcome. They're pretty short pop songs, and I think that's just what the Green Album does best. Like, yeah, it knows it's not going to be like any emotional, like, lyrical masterpiece like Pinkerton. It's just going to be more fun and upbeat like the Blue Album was. And I think that's its greatest strength as an album. It's just something you can just relax to, and I really get that feeling when I listen to this album. You know what? This thing might be their most underrated album yet. I hardly see a lot of people talk about this album, but at least when I do see people talk about this album, it's usually in high regards or some sort of praise, which is good because I really enjoyed this album. This is probably Weezer's more versatile releases since it really toys with a lot of different genres. Like the opener, American Gigolo, has traces of like heavy metal to it. Heat Vision is more groove oriented. Death and Destruction is more post rock. And hell, even songs like Burnt Jam has more of a funk influence to it. It really feels like that when the Green Album released, the band were trying to, not develop on like the sound that Green produced, but more try its own thing, and I think it worked greatly. Sure, there's kind of a more underwhelmingness to some of the songs, such as Space Rock, Slave, and even the closer December, but all of the other moments are just so great in their own way that they really overshadow those moments. Some of my other favorite songs include Take Control, which is very more rock-centric focus. It's more typical. You get songs like Possibilities, which is more punk-oriented, and I think that's kind of cool. I love the grooviness of Fall Together, and Love Explosion is a pretty good pop song overall. It makes me really wish that Weezer really didn't go the direction of Make Believe or Ratitude, instead making a little bit more of the heavy stuff that was on this album. I think it would have been great for them. Oh wait. Well, this came out of left field. Yes, Weezer did release an orchestra album this year, and it's one of their best albums in a long time. Yeah, the strings are kind of all over this album, but it really doesn't detract from the actual album experience itself, since they really help make it feel like a Weezer album, but instead of a normal band, it's strings. You kind of got the quarantine kind of party anthem, I guess. That is All My Favorite Songs, the Audible inspired Grapes of Wrath, one of the best performances on the album being Playing My Piano. You got Bird with a Broken Wing, which is one of the best songs the band has ever released. It has this kind of somber yet more confident sounding feeling towards it. And La Brea Tar Pits is easily one of the most interesting Weezer songs in a while. It's more jazz influenced, from what I can hear, but it sounds amazing. Sure, well, this album does talk about like the dangers of like technology in the modern world, and it couldn't be any more clear than the song Screens, which is easily the most boomer thing Weezer has ever done. Some of the lyrics are actually quite good in their own way that really help describe the quarantine lifestyle. It's easily one of my favorite albums from 2021, although it's not my favorite, but at least it's in like the top 5 maybe, since it is a very good album. And if you want to hear a Weezer album with more strings on it, this album can do you good. After almost 10 years of digging around and kind of being ridiculed and putting out mediocre album after mediocre album, Weezer went back to basics, and my god, it's one of their best albums ever. It's more rock-oriented than before, and also the lyrics really reflect Rivers Cuomo as a songwriter, as they feel like it's a natural progression. It really feels like the band is just becoming a lot more self-aware and very mature about it. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why I like the album. You get fantastic cut after fantastic cut on this thing. You like the opener Ain't Got Nobody is very rockin' and really helps get the mood of we're going back to basics. Back to the Shack is basically an apology song for all of the shit they've done throughout the years. And Eulogy for a Rock Band is easily one of the most self-aware songs Weezer has ever put out. Even the other more self-aware song being I've Had It Up to Here has more of a funk-oriented feeling to it all, but when that's paired with the 1-2 punch of the British It's Coming, oh my god, it's just so good. And when those guitar solo hits, they hit so hard, like it's actually just amazing. You also get Weezer's second collaboration with Go Away, an amazing duet between Rivers and I believe her name was Bethany Cosentino. I think that was her name, but she does an amazing job on this song, and I think it's fantastic. One of the best songs off the album. You also get cuts like Cleopatra and Foolish Father that really help show the band's songwriting that really progressed. And Foolish Father especially is easily like one of the best Weezer songs ever. It's pretty much a perfect closer. However, my favorite part about the album are actually the last 3 tracks making the Future Scope trilogy. They really help show Rivers is actually just a really good guitar player and everyone else in the band is equally as talented as he is. I want to highlight Return to Ithaca because it really shows the band is really good at playing their instruments. And if the band were to end here, I feel like this would be an amazing swan song for the band. However, it isn't the last album, except they went on to make another great album, which we'll get into. Not now, but we'll definitely get to it eventually. I am more than well aware that this is a controversial place, considering that by many people, the Blue Album is considered their best album. I definitely see that, A lot of the songs in here are basically Weezer staples, and a lot of the songs here are really, really good and really helped kick off the whole 90s alternative kind of weird movement with songs like Undone the Sweater Song. This album really shows the band's nerdier side as well, with a song like In the Garage, that's just oozing with nerdiness. The other songs on this album are really amazing, such as My Name is Jonas with that classic opening acoustic line. And then you got Buddy Holly, which is probably the song that got me into Weezer, and Surf Wax America, which is just a fun song about going to work on a surfboard. Even in between those more fun moments, Weezer does pull out their classic emotional songs such as Say It Ain't So, or The World Has Turned and Left Me Here, or the 8-minute epic that is Only in Dreams. Hell, so many people have talked about how good this album is, and I really understand why. It's an amazing album. It's great. It helped get me into Weezer. I understand why it's a classic to so many people and pretty much the entirety of the alternative rock movement. But to me, it just isn't their best album, not even their second best. To many people, this is considered their best album since Pinkerton, and I can definitely see why. It was the first album I listened to that was post Pinkerton, and I just immediately fell in love with this thing. This album made me appreciate the season of summer, which is very rarely something you could do with me since I don't really care about the season. I think it's way too hot. It's overrated. Only good part is that you don't get school. However, when I listen to this thing, I just want to go to the beach and just jump into the ocean and just have myself a jolly good time. I mean, the album even opens with the 1-2 punch of California Kids and Wind in Our Sail. Basically 2 summertime anthems that are just amazing. They're fun and they're just so upbeat that I can't hardly hate these songs. Thank God for Girls can be a little dumb at points, but I really love the instrumentation, especially the keyboards. Girl We Got a Good Thing is basically your typical Weezer lovey-dovey ballad or song. It's really wholesome. I can't really hate it, but I really love the bridge before the solo. It just surprises me every time that I kind of forget it's there. Do You Want to Get High is pretty much a Pinkerton B-side or song that was originally supposed to be there, but it ended up here, and I think it works great on this album. You got King of the World and Summer Lane and Drunk Dory, which are basically kind of more summer and kind of happier songs, even though I really prefer King of the World more, even though I love both songs. However, in my opinion, the last 3 songs on the album are amazing. You got LA Girls, which is basically Rivers just telling like these LA girls that they need to act their age and just, I don't know, it's something amazing I'd never hear Rivers say. But oh my god, the solo on that song is just breathtaking. Jacked Up is a really nice song as well. I love the more funk-oriented kind of groove to it with the keyboards, and Pat's drumming just really helps bring the song to life for me. Endless Bummer is easily my favorite song off the album, and I love that it's just an acoustic song for like a good portion of it. And then after kind of like the second chorus, these drums from Pat just start coming in, and then the band is just playing like quietly when Rivers is saying that last part, and then it just erupts into an amazing solo, and it really goes to show how great of a guitarist Rivers Cuomo is. I really love this album. I mean, I put it above Blue out of all things, and I really want people to listen to this album more. It's a fantastic album, and a great way to show you that Weezer can make songs past Pinkerton. Speaking of Pinkerton, and finally, we have Pinkerton. Easily the band's most emotional album, their darkest album, their most complex album, and obviously it's their best album. Like I mentioned before, the songs are mainly known for being extremely emotional, point over where Rivers is just oversharing some of this. However, I really don't mind that because I think it just adds a level of authenticity to the album. You got Tired of Sex, which is just a loud, obnoxious, very rough or lo-fi sounding opener, and it really helps set the rest of the album up. Get You is very classic Weezer kind of song and I also like that little fuzz lead in as well. No Other One is a really depressing and just miserable song, but arguably the solo is one of the most happiest sounding parts of the record. And I love that little woo that's in the background before the song really kicks in. Why Bother is a nice little short and really catchy song as well. That's kind of a little bit of a break from No Other One, isn't it? It's more happy, yet it still retains some of that lyrical themes with sexual frustration. Across the Sea may be controversial, but I don't think it was a problem back then, so that kind of really doesn't affect my listening experience with the song, even though it is kind of one of my least favorites off the record, as in I think it is a little too creepy at moments. Then you got the single The Good Life, which is a really awesome song that kicks off the second half, and it's really about just, hey, I want to go back to the good life where I'm loved and I'm famous and people genuinely care about me. I also love that bridge and that little guitar noises that happen at the end. It's just very amazing, and I love its kind of chaotic nature. El Scorcho is probably the most accessible song on the album, maybe because it's the only quote-unquote happy song from the album, but it really does have some of its emotional moments, and I really love that the bridge is in double time and it just changes the entire song. And I just love how experimental the song can be at moments. Pink Triangle is one of my favorite songs. It's about basically just being rejected by a girl because she's a lesbian. It's a fun song, and I honestly really love this song, and I just love Rivers' vocal performances on this song. It really helps drive the song's more emotional moments on it, I guess. And I really like the more somewhat Middle Eastern feeling that the song has. Falling For You is my favorite Weezer song, and it's definitely the highlight of the album. It makes a great penultimate track. I love the build up from the soft, playful guitars in the beginning, and then it just goes straight into the verse, and it just keeps on killing it throughout and throughout. And also, the solo is easily one of their best solos ever. I could really just gush on about this song, but Butterfly is a great closer as well, and it really just helps wrap the bow on Pinkerton as a whole. This album is amazing. It really sucks that the album didn't get enough recognition that it really deserved back then, although I am glad that it does now, even though it kind of fucked up the band and we kind of got albums like Make Believe, Ratitude, Pacific Daydream, and every other post-Pinkerton album, since it kind of just fucks up Rivers' perception on what he should do as a songwriter. I definitely wouldn't say don't listen to this as your first Weezer album, as it's kind of completely different from every other Weezer album, but I will say, if you are very curious enough, I would highly recommend it, that you check it out. It's phenomenal, and I just absolutely love it. It's an all-time favorite album for me. So, what did you think about my list? Did you like it? What would you rate differently? How would you rank it in the comment section below? I would love to see your opinions. And, by the way, you can follow me on Album of the Year and Rate Your Music if you want to see more of my full opinions of each album. Links are in the description below. Another thing I wanted to bring up is I really enjoyed doing this video, so I wanted to make more, and so I'm a very indecisive person. I decided there is a forum down below where you can vote on the winner of the next episode of the series, and hopefully it's a good one. I list some of my favorite artists down there, so it would be really cool if you voted. Anyway, thank you for watching, like, subscribe, everything, and that's about it. Goodbye.